Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Strategically Social. One of the biggest sources of mental exhaustion today isn't just the work that we do, but it's the way that we constantly fragment our attention. So think about this. You're getting notifications, then you're getting emails, maybe somebody's sending you a DM, and then you remember that you wanted to post something, so you jump over to Instagram quickly. Or maybe you just jump over to Facebook because you want to check your feed. And of course, by the time you come back to what you were originally doing, your brain has to kind of do a reboot. But here's the thing. Every one of those little shifts that you're doing, even though they might only take a few seconds, the cost of all that refocusing adds up. So sure, you end up feeling busy all day, but are you actually making progress? Or are you just spinning your wheels in the noise and reacting to everything? That's the trap right there, that illusion of productivity. Sort of feels like you're accomplishing things because you're constantly doing something and you're always on alert. But in reality, your brain is just ping-ponging between shallow tasks. This is what's called context switching. And over time, all that context switching, it really creates a lot of fatigue. It's not just a physical tiredness. It creates like a mental fog. So maybe the creativity is there, the ideas are there, but you can't quite access them really well in a really direct and efficient way. Ultimately, we have to accept that our brain has limited cognitive bandwidth. So every time we do this context switching or switching between tasks, in a sense, we have to unload one mental model and load up a completely different one. And think about it, we might be doing that many, many times a day. Now, along with this constant switching, there results something that I've heard called attention residue. This is the idea that part of our attention still lingers on the previous task, even when we've switched over to the new task. So this means that even when you move on, you're not fully present. And research indicates that it takes sort of around 20 minutes or so to get back into a deep focus after an interruption. And imagine you're doing like creative work and you're switching back and forth between that creative work and checking your notifications and your email. Well, the work itself, in my opinion, starts to feel sort of choppy and disconnected. All right, so then what are some of the fixes or solutions to this issue? Well, a couple of the big ones are simply turning off those non-essential notifications, and then also using the strategy of batching. So with batching, we want to sort of flip this whole idea of being in a reactive mode to more of a proactive mode. Rather than reacting to things the moment they show up, like new emails or new notifications or comments, we want to group similar things together and handle them in focused, dedicated time blocks. So for example, we might choose to check our email at 4 times a day, maybe once every 3 hours. And if we're planning the posting of some new content, well, maybe we want to pick a single day of the week to do that, or we want to pick a group of 4 hours or something on a Monday to do it. Some other things that could be batched are maybe creating thumbnails if you're doing YouTube videos, working on your newsletters. You can do several of them at once, maybe. Maybe doing something like cleaning up your file system on your computer, or even doing research. So rather than jumping down all these separate rabbit holes as they occur, maybe keep a simple list of those things that you want to investigate or do further research on, things that pop up during your day, and then sit down and do it all at once. And all this might end up feeling like a small shift in how you operate, but essentially it has a massive ripple effect because you're going from a reactive mode to an intentional proactive mode, from a state of being fragmented to a state of being more focused and being able to get into more of that flow state. In reactive mode, it's sort of like you're on a digital leash. You're distracted, but you're also lowering your sense of self-respect in a way, because there's this subtle feeling of always being on standby for someone else's priorities. It trains your brain to stay in that high alert mode, and it fuels that baseline feeling of digital anxiety, right? The feeling is that you're not fully in control and choosing your path, but rather that you're being carried along by the notifications and external triggers that could pop up at any moment. So being able to switch to that more proactive, intentional mode, that's the real win. And of course, you have to take into account your own specific situation with work or, personal issues. You, of course, want to be able to respond to any real crises. But the more that you can switch to that intentional mode of doing things, the more you can achieve that feeling of calm, clear-headedness, of being in control. So if you're feeling sort of fried lately, or very distracted, maybe try turning off those non-essential notifications, the ones that you truly don't need. Maybe try setting a focus mode or do not disturb mode on your phone. And try taking certain tasks that you find yourself revisiting constantly in little piecemeal ways throughout the day and making dedicated time blocks for them so you can batch them together. You want to protect your attention like it matters, because it really does. You only get so much focus in a day, so use it on purpose. See you next time.